Justice warriors, here we are once again. It is Tuesday, January 17th. It is almost a quarter to 10 in the morning on the East Coast time. So, how are you guys? If somebody in chat could say hello, I'll know that it's all up and running and working. But I will go ahead and get started anyway, because sometimes it takes a minute. I just want to say that everything I say is simply my opinion, simply for the sake of conversation, hoping to open up a discussion and hoping to be educational for myself and anyone else. Also, it's made specifically for YouTube and that being an entertainment platform. So I like to cover all those bases. Please hit the thumbs up button if you'd be so kind. It helps the algorithm, helps to send out the video for anyone who might be interested in watching it. So, and also subscribing and sharing is also super helpful. So I appreciate that if you would be so kind. All right. On the Idaho 4 case, oh my goodness. It is just appalling, isn't it? Absolutely appalling. Um, I want to say that I have so much respect for the YouTube channel What's the Obsession. So Kelly runs that channel. She started with the Watts case a couple of years ago, and every so often she covers some other cases, which I am always so glad when she covers the cases that I'm interested in, like when she covered Kylie Rodney's case and also the Idaho 4, because she's brilliant. Hey, makeup date with Jack. Good morning. Thank you for saying hello. So Kelly's brilliant, and I had the opportunity to be on her live panel discussion the night before last, or 2 nights ago. Sorry, Saturday night, or was it Sunday night? I think it was Saturday night. It might have been Sunday night. Doesn't it all just blend together? I've got all my notes to keep me organized, and then here I am. Anyway, on with the show. Last night, I was unable to be part of her panel discussion, unfortunately, because it was so good. I've been catching up today. I did watch some of it last night, and then I've been watching some of it this morning. Um, I highly recommend. Again, the one that I was on with her the other night was 4 hours long. And then the one from last night, again, 4 hours long. But I'm telling you, it's worth the time. If you put it on double speed, it'll take 2 hours to get through it. Not that you'd want to speed through it, but most people talk at a pace that double speed is not so much of a problem. And wow. So, where to start? I want to start with one of my biggest concerns that I keep going back to with this case is that bar surveillance footage from the Corner Club that was leaked allegedly on the 27th of December. And that had Maddie and Kaylee speaking with a man sitting on a bar stool that you could see his face, and it looked like it could be Jack D. And allegedly, it was confirmed a couple of days later that it was indeed Jack D. And then that being on the 29th of December, and then the very next day, there was the arrest made in Pennsylvania of the criminal defendant, and everybody forgot all about Jack D. I'm still super curious about that bar surveillance footage screenshot, why it was released or leaked, when it was, the timing of that, and the timing of it being confirmed by several sources on the internet that it was indeed the ex-boyfriend. And maybe it's not. Maybe that's misinformation. I'm asking if anybody knows. Monica Michelle says, yes, I want to know what the heck happened with that photo. Like it just disappeared and forgotten about. Oh, Monica Michelle, I'm so glad you said that. Because, yeah, I kind of, again, it's one of these things where I feel like I'm going out on this island all by myself. But I feel like it's an important island. And I've brought it up a couple of times. And then I kind of forget about it, too. I think it's really important. Why is it being forgotten about? So I want to jump right in also because there's been so much talk and chatter on the internet about the one channel with the inebriated animal. I'll just leave it at that. um, and a specific individual who called into the inebriated animal channel and said that she had two kids, that she's from Seattle. She has two kids that go to school in Pullman, and that she was actually visiting that weekend of November 13th. Um, and that person reminded me a lot of another person from another case, somebody who injected herself and really threw things off. And I'm wondering if it could be the same person, possibly, or just somebody so similar that I just want to caution all of us that are paying any attention to that. Personally, I feel like I want to discount what she's saying. If what she's saying is true, she should take it to the authorities, like she said she did. She claimed that she did, and she should not be talking about it on any inebriated animal YouTube channel, in my humble opinion. I feel very strongly about that. I feel like we need to shut that shit down. So, um, Monica says, "I just keep going back to it." And you're talking about the photograph, the still shot, right? And then the other guy in the still shot. So you have Atom, you have Jack Showalter, possibly the hoodie guy, and then you have the man, the older gentleman standing in between the two, who looks like he's speaking to Adam, and his face is smeared out like a horror show face. It's very suspicious. I was going to say curious, but it's not curious. It's suspicious. Why did they smear out that man's face? They don't want anyone to know his identity. And you guys might remember who I think it looks like. And I'm just really wanting that photograph to be acknowledged by law enforcement. Who's in that photograph? This is taken, the still shot of the surveillance camera in the bar is maybe 2 hours before a quadruple homicide. What in the world is going on with that? And I'm sure something better be going on with it behind the scenes, right? Um, Makeup Date with Jack says, "OMG, I just got suggested the Drunk Animal channel this morning. So weird. I didn't watch it." I had been, it was just a week or two ago that somebody in my chat recommended the channel to me. And I was really glad that they did. I thought it was a very interesting channel. But this, I think, is crap. I did a little bit of research on the channel. It's only been around since May of 2022, and it already has over 20,000 subs, which is phenomenal, a phenomenal rate of growth. Like, look at Watts the Obsession channel, who's been around for an entire year longer, also has a phenomenal rate of growth, but about the same number of subs. So that's really, really unusual. I mean, it's hard to compare. Sometimes it's apples and oranges, but um, I definitely don't trust the Kim character, and I'm very um, disappointed in the people making that channel, of them pumping this information out there. It's like they're trying to inject this case with a bunch of toxic doubt that can just be really unfortunate for justice. And my main goal is to be sure that justice is had for these victims and for their families. And it just seems really haphazard. If it's true, and I don't believe that it is, but if it is, put a lid on it. That's my point. Um, it's weird that the algorithm suggested it to me with that caller. Well, mm, yeah, I don't want to go off on that too much. I just want to say we have to be so skeptical of any information, especially new information, and just pay attention. I think that the whole Kylie Rodney case was poisoned with that fire cam, And there was a person who came out on the streets of YouTube 24 hours before the fire cam video was released, and she paved the way for the fire cam, and she had this little story. No joke, it was about a rat or a mouse in a grocery store, and then she ran into this woman who, had been sitting watching the water and saw headlights, and remember all that? Remember all that? It was nuts, and then she this caller kept saying, "Well, you guys don't believe me, but believe me this, that within 24 hours, you will understand what I'm saying." And then within 24 hours, that fire cam footage was released, and everybody said, "Oh, goodness gracious, it was a car accident. We have videotape of Ms. Kylie Rodney driving herself into the water." And I've never trusted that fire cam footage for a second, and I've never trusted that caller for a second, but that fire cam footage monkey wrenched the entire case, and in my opinion, it still is monkey wrenching that entire case, even though it's been debunked. I mean, yes, it's been debunked. No, it's been not debunked. It's utter bullshit, in my humble opinion. Okay. Um, and that whole situation of these YouTube channels that keep popping up like mine. And there's people that are very concerned about these YouTube channels that keep popping up. Why would they be so concerned? If it's just a bunch of hogwash, if it's just a bunch of entertainment, if it's just a bunch of fodder, who cares? But my opinion is that these channels are individuals trying to seek the truth. Some of us are really set on trying to seek the truth and speak the truth. Um, Sorry, my email thing just popped up. And they don't want that. They don't want the truth to be out there. So, you know, there was something that I wanted to say. I wanted to quote the Keith Morrison from Dateline. And I do have a lot of respect for Keith Morrison, although I thought that Dateline video on the Idaho 4 was not very good. Um, Keith Morrison, I think, is good. So he called it a true crime obsession and was uh, inquiring if possibly it's reached its peak. And he was not happy about this true crime obsession, saying that, there needs to be responsible journalism, well researched, ethical, and legal, which I totally agree with all of that. Responsible, well researched, ethical, and legal, to keep those things in mind. That these channels, just like irresponsible journalism and propaganda, can do a lot of harm. They can harm people, they can harm people's lives, they can harm the quality of people's lives. I think we all need to be very mindful and careful and respectful of these lives that were lost, respectful of the families that are going to be suffering for the duration. Um, I just think that we need to be very careful about the information that we buy into. No matter how good that information is, sometimes people get it wrong, right? Sometimes people get misinformation and they're not trying. They've made a point to research, but they still have it wrong for whatever reason. So we can't believe what is coming out of people's mouths, my own included. I try to be very specific and be accurate and, fix any mistakes that I make, but we're all human and we will all make mistakes. So, um, yeah. And why is the algorithm doing that to you, Makeup Date with Jack? Why is the algorithm selecting you and selecting that video and suggesting it to you? That's, you know, there's a lot of videos being made about this case. So why that one? It's very, very weird, in my humble opinion. Good morning, KT Van. And yeah, okay. All right, on with the show. I wanted to mention something that Keith Morrison brought to my attention is that Brian, our criminal defendant, did not graduate high school, according to Keith Morrison, that he got his GED, which I thought was extremely interesting, especially for somebody to get a GED and then to go on to higher education to the doctoral level. That's like almost unheard of. It's highly unlikely, highly, highly unlikely. I'm not saying that it's not true. I'm just saying that it's extremely curious. Also, knowing that the criminal defendant is possibly a registered libertarian, also very interesting. So, a question that I have that was also being asked in the What's the Obsession discussion panel last night, and I'm hoping you guys might be able to help with this, is the person that had the SWAT team intervention, Brent Kopak, I think is how you say his name, um, or Brent Kopacha, something like that. He's 36 years old. The SWAT team incident, I think, started on December 14th, and then he was shot and killed by the SWAT team on December 15th. And curious if anybody knows what kind of car he drove. I'm very curious if he perhaps may have driven a white Elantra, maybe a 2012 or 2011 or 2013. Just curious. I'm not saying that there's a connection between these two, but I'm curious if there is any connection between these two. It's very curious that the criminal defendant's father brought up the incident. Did he bring it up in both of the traffic stops? Did he bring it up in both? I keep rewatching them because there's so much information in them. And I want to say he might have brought it up in both. I know for sure he brought it up in the second traffic stop, for sure. Um, anyway, let's get on with it because here we are at 17 minutes, and I want to pack a lot into this one and try to keep it in, under half an hour if possible. So it's Brent Kopaka. I think that's how you say it, Brent Kopaka. So he was killed by that SWAT team. And he did not live far away from the criminal defendant in Pullman. So it's curious. He was also, as we know, a military vet, and he had some sort of traumatic brain injury when he served. And so he was suffering some severe post traumatic stress disorder. But there's never been any information about why he was threatening his roommates. So, all right. So it was Friday, December 30th. It was the night before or the day before New Year's Eve that the suspect, that this criminal defendant, was arrested. It was the day before that, on December 29th, that the Grand County from Utah made a big presentation about Kylan Schulte and Crystal Turner. A huge presentation about their whole double homicide from the previous summer, from what was it, August 14th of 2021. So out of the blue, I thought it was kind of out of the blue when I was looking at that case in some of my videos a week or so before the Grand County came out with this big presentation on the 29th. And then the very next day, this guy was arrested, and it just seemed odd. Another thing that seems so odd to me is all of the connection with, bear with me, the national forests, right? So the Grand County Sheriff was presenting on a double homicide that happened in a national park. As far as we know, that we know that Gabby Petito was killed in the national park. We know that the situations that happened by Lake Tahoe, you got national park going on there. So I looked at national parks on the West Coast, kind of west of the Mississippi, and it just blew my mind how much of the land is actually national parks. I've never quite looked at that. For those who don't know, Alaska is almost all federally owned. It's a huge state, it's a lot of land, it's almost all federally owned. So I'm thinking that's not so different than a lot of the West Coast. A lot of that is national park land. I mean, I've been interested in enjoying the great outdoors for my entire adult life, and it wasn't until yesterday that it just dawned on me how much of this land is national park land. So the criminal defendant drove south on the day that he allegedly may have committed these crimes, and he could have perhaps gone into a national park land to destroy some evidence, possibly. He also may have crossed a state line to do that, and he also may have gone on Native American reservation land, which, like I mentioned yesterday, is a sovereign nation. It abides by its own rules and its own laws. So um, it can get pretty complicated. It can get pretty complicated. So I hope I haven't lost you guys on all that. I probably have, right? Oh my goodness. So I spoke about getting making public records requests yesterday and how you need to be pretty specific for what you're looking for. But at the same time, you don't want to be too specific because you never know what kind of information you'll get in your request. And they want you to be as specific as possible because they don't want to have to share anything that you're not asking for. At the same time, you don't necessarily want the people that you're making the request from, you don't necessarily want them to know what you're looking for. So it's really a game, which is why there's all the back and forth. You know, you make a request for something like, say, the Gabby Petito file, and then they'll say, well, we need more specifics. What do you want in the Gabby Petito file? And then you can say, I want all the body cams, I want all the reports, I want the 911 call, I want follow up. And then they may send you all of that, and they may not. They may come back with another, well, that's again too vague. We need you to be more specific. So part of the problem is that you have to know what's there already. If you're looking for it, you have to know that it's there. You have to know what it is you're looking for. And you don't want to give yourself away. You want to not let them know exactly what it is that you're doing in the event that you're suspicious of some type of cover up. Because if it's some type of cover up, they're going to be trying to hide the things that they want to try to hide. So it's a whole bunch of gobbledygook. I'm also super curious why the criminal defendant and his father drove across the country on Interstate 70 instead of Interstate 80. Again, looking at these maps, Interstate 70 is so much further south than Interstate 80. They went 8 hours out of their way, I think. They went hundreds and hundreds of miles out of their way to drop down to Interstate 70. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? There has to be a reason. Somebody suggested that maybe he was wanting to flee to Mexico and his father was talking him out of it. I think that that's anything's possible, but that's like speculation that we need to be really careful of. It could be that they had family that they wanted to stop and say hi to. Um, it could be a lot of things, but I think it's significant that they drove on Interstate 70 versus Interstate 80. Maybe there was something that they were trying to avoid driving through. So, um, Yes, why do they come through Colorado? That's my state, and it's a little freaky. See, and they drove through my state too. They drove through Ohio, and yeah, that totally creeped me out when I learned that. It's just like, man, too close for comfort, right? They would have been driving through Ohio whether they went on 80 or 70. But it is very curious what their motivation was to go that far south. Especially because Interstate 80 is more direct. Interstate 80, they could have hopped on a lot sooner and just done a straight shot all the way across. Whereas Interstate 70, they had to do a lot of hopping around. Maybe they just wanted to take the scenic route, but I don't know. It's suspicious. The whole thing is suspicious, like why they were driving the white Elantra across the country. Why didn't the criminal defendant get that white Elantra painted or something? That's just nuts to me. Absolutely nuts to me. So, let's see. Dilly Owens, hello. Could be they were going places to dump some of the stuff. Last thing they wanted to do is dump it at rest stops. Exactly. That's kind of where I was going with that. Bed Crime Stories. Oh, that's a good channel, isn't it? I love her. Said Brian drove to the area of the shooter's area after the stabbings. Um, oh, you mean uh, the SWAT team that he drove to the SWAT team person's area? They didn't live too far away from each other in Pullman. The criminal defendant and the SWAT team veteran of the Army. But yeah, I really appreciate Bed Crime Stories. She does a great job. So both the criminal defendant and the SWAT team individual, they both had worked as security. I don't know that they ever worked as security together or at the same time. To my knowledge, the criminal defendant worked as a security guard in Pennsylvania at a school, which is super creepy. And I don't know about the Brent K. I don't know where he worked security, but it's also super curious that his department, that he worked in the IT department, I believe at the University of Idaho. I've heard both that it was IT in Pullman at Washington State University and that it was at the University of Idaho. Either way, the fact that he worked IT, but especially if he worked IT at U of I, since their connection was down at some point the night or the wee morning hours of the quadruple event. I took as the area of where the shooter lived. Okay. Um, and like I said, they lived really close to each other. I'm sure that some people online have done some maps of how close to each other, but you got to remember, Pullman's a really small town, a really small area. They both lived off campus. So there's not that much uh, square miles of Pullman that's off campus. So let's see. What else do I want to include in this before we wrap up for the morning? I think what's really important is the part about the bar surveillance footage. That was my biggest thing that I wanted to communicate to you guys and see if anybody had any further information about it, about the footage, about why it was dropped. I'm happy to know that other people are curious about that as well. It was confirmed that it was Jack D in the photograph, which I found very alarming. I don't know if that's accurate, though. If that is accurate, that's really concerning because that was never his story that he hung out with them at the bar that night, right? That would be very concerning. And I'm also very concerned of who the guy is with his face wiped off. I did want to point out that it was not the criminal defendant that did the DoorDash delivery. that in the affidavit, I think it's on page 3, it's very specific in the verbiage about it being a different party that made that delivery. So let me read the last couple of your comments and then wrap up for this morning because we are already at the 30-minute mark. I could be wrong, wouldn't be the first time. Didn't they talk to the DoorDash guy? I think they did. I think that that's what is on page 3, that they interacted with the DoorDash guy. I'll have to look at that again on the affidavit. But yeah, I think the takeaway from this morning's video is to not believe anything that you hear on the internet, even when it's coming from a very reliable journalistic news source, that they get information wrong. It was on that 48 hours, I think, that they said that the 2 traffic stops in Indiana were 10 minutes apart. They were not. They were 5 hours apart, according to the timestamps on the body cam videos. Earlier reports, it was all over the internet that that the 2 traffic stops were 30 minutes apart. Not correct. If you look at the timestamps, it's 5 hours. If those timestamps are accurate, which I'm guessing that they probably are. No notification, Annie Ruler. Okay. Crazy they deliver up to 4 a.m., not where I live. Right, because they're college towns. And yeah, the Jack in the Box is in Pullman. I was mistaken. I thought that there was a Jack in the Box in Moscow that closed earlier, but I think that that's a Taco Bell that is in Moscow that closes earlier, and then the Taco Bell in Pullman stays open later. But the Jack in the Box stays open late. They cut off their delivery orders, I think, at 2:45, and then they don't deliver any later than 4 a.m. But we still don't know if the order was actually made by Xana or if the criminal defendant might have placed the order to, I don't know, instigate this whole domino effect of the process unfolding. It's very, very curious that he would have gone in so quickly after a DoorDash delivery, and why he was circling around the house for half an hour before he went in. But then as soon as that DoorDash is delivered, then he goes in. So, all right. Right. Rhonda R says he could gain to entry. Right. And he could also distract. So, it's interesting to me that they don't give a specific time of the DoorDash delivery in the affidavit. They say something like about 4 a.m. or around 4 a.m. I think it's about, but you know that they know exactly when it was delivered because they have the videotape and they spoke with the guy. So why they're not more specific is very curious. Anyway, I think that that other big takeaway is trying to figure out what the purpose was of driving on Interstate 70. And like Dilly Owens said, maybe it was just to dispose of some more of the evidence. I can't seem to find his voice to listen to compare it to other voices. Are you talking about the criminal defendant? Just got up, been getting well. Oh, hey, Heavenly Clouds. I'm glad that you're getting well. That's unfortunate to not be well, isn't it? I hate being sick. I hate being tired. I hate being sick and tired. But yesterday I was super tired. You could probably tell in my videos. I'm much better rested today. Rhonda R says, I don't know. I think he had been there before because of the odd setup of the house. Oh, I absolutely think he had to know the setup of the house. There's so much unanswered questions. I mean, what a bizarre case. What an absolutely bizarre case. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. I will try to come on for an afternoon live somewhere around 2:30, give or take. And hopefully I'll have some good nuggets for you. I hope you guys have a great morning and get your exercise, eat your fruits, eat your veggies, eat your protein. Make sure you stay well hydrated and make sure everyone is nice to you and make sure that you are kind to people around you. Um, let's see. Last couple of comments here. Burger, because everybody's playing videos saying these people on Reddit and stuff, and his voice, I've never heard voices coming out of his own mouth. Oh, yeah, I know. That's just a bunch of crazy, sometimes the information on Reddit is accurate, but probably 98% of the time it's not. So trying to discern when it is going to be really tough. I hate being sweaty. That's why I complain through every workout. Um, Oh, Alex Erickson has the voices on a short video. Good to know. That's a channel that I'm familiar with, but I don't keep up with. I'll try to check that out. Um, very good to know. And then you guys have a great morning. I'm going to say peace out. I will hopefully see you later today and enjoy yourself. Have a great day. Get some fresh air, get some sunshine, and try to relax, take it easy, and be productive. All of it, right? Thanks so much for joining me.